All right. Welcome to the Misassembled podcast. I'm your host, Gerard G. Kaihui. With me, as always, is my partners in crime. I've got Dan Crozier. How's it going, Dan?
All right. How you doing, Gerard?
I'm doing great. Thank you. And Pete Roskop, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you, sir?
Doing great, sir. Great on the Sunday.
Great on a Sunday. Yeah. It's a little snowy today. Everybody's nice and bundled and warm. But today we're going to talk about a current project that Misassembly's working on, Camp Crash. Dan, why don't you enlighten the viewers as to what Camp Crash is and all about?
Camp Crash is essentially a mishmash of Meatballs meets Mad Max. Got the idea from moving into my studio at Grace in Denver. It's an old stockyard, just with a lot of junk and shit in the yard, and it inspired this idea to kind of synthesize those two concepts, to do a comedy and to make it feel relatively post-apocalyptic. I wanted to, after Isolation Man last year, I wanted to do another feature project, and picking up all that audio.
Are we picking up everything else on the side right now?
Oh my God.
Is that Pete?
Yeah, Pete, we can hear the paper and everything being ripped. It was pretty loud.
Oh, I mean, wow. I'm using my Bluetooth, so it's right here. So I just pulled a piece of paper out, and that's all I did, just so I can take notes.
Yeah, we were here. We could hear all that. That's fine.
We could hear it. I had to pause a couple times. I wasn't...
Sorry. I mean, it was like one little piece of paper that I pulled out. So that's weird. And my mic's up here.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's start it from the top again. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Camp Crash is about?
Okay, so Camp Crash is essentially the meeting of Meatballs and Mad Max. I really wanted to kind of blend up these two genres, the summer camp comedy and the post-apocalyptic wasteland adventure and sci-fi. In 2016, I think it was January of 2016, I moved into a new studio over by Grace in Denver, just off of just on 50th off Washington Street, and it's an old stockyard, and a lot of debris and stuff, a lot of big wide open spaces. It looked relatively dystopian, and having just released Isolation Man the year before, I really wanted to get back and shoot something new and something big and something location. And I thought, wow, what a great place. So I wrote a script around it, and in good Daniel Crozier form, made it absolutely ridiculous and absurdist, and had a lot of fun with it. Essentially, it was supposed to be a feature film project, but once we started organizing the piece, it soon became realized that we needed to break it down into simpler components. We could make it episodic and attack each episode individually. We also wanted to make it into kind of a found object film where people would put together their own costumes, create their own characters. The script is incredibly vague in terms of characters are, and what the location and props and everything and settings are. I really wanted it to be kind of a team effort to create those, environments and those props individually, and basically raid their own garage storage units and bring that stuff in, onto the set and see if it'll work with the overall aesthetic. So make it very, kind of punk rock in a sense. But yeah, that's kind of how that came apart or came about, and where it's moved into.
And if I could just add a couple things,
sure.
If I could just add a couple things that Danny talked about, the idea, well, two things. The idea of breaking it into episodes instead of a full-length feature has to do with the type of media that we are wanting to go after for this particular project, where it would be definitely kind of like a streaming area. The other thing, too, is with the actors. Doing a picture, especially kind of, this represents the core of one of the foundations of misassembly, and that's where we have a lot of participation from our artists. So we want them to feel like they are a part of the creative production. So letting them have the costumes. Now, if someone comes up with a costume that's extremely off the flavor of the movie, then we're going to say, okay, maybe we'll work other aspects of it into it, or just a hell no. But we want them to still have ownership of their, really come into it as a partnership and feel that they are developing their own creativity within this certain parameter of script, of phase, of genre that they've created. So and that is an essence of misassembly, where we it's not just show up, read a script, film, you have everything handed to you and go. It's be a part of it, be a part of the creation process. We want you to use your creative juices. And during filming of the first episode, there was a lot of little things that came out when someone came up with a creative idea or had a certain different prop or a way that we originally thought, no, this isn't going to work this way. No, this isn't going to happen. And so it's just a beautiful process.
Yeah, it definitely kind of unifies as a group, and becomes a little bit more of a family. Yeah, it's
like
absolutely
effort between everybody that's kind of involved in the project. Then, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
It's more of like a collaborative effort between everybody that's involved with the film. Then it's
yeah, we've set up the parameters so they have a little bit more real estate, and have a little bit more flexibility to kind of to create the thing forward, and feel free and create a safe environment to introduce new ideas too. I don't think, especially when it comes to lines and scripts, I don't think there's been a time that I really said no. It's just figuring out where something might fit, or putting a pin in it and coming back to it at a later time or a later episode.
So you mentioned a safe environment. What do you mean by safe environment?
Safe. Well, clearly the stuff in the script is not safe. But in terms of presenting ideas, presenting new concepts, I want everybody to feel like it's it's comfortable to present those ideas, and nobody's gonna shoot anything down or belittle or do anything like that. We're all supportive of each other. I want to hear those too. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes he's going to have some of the answers. Gerard's going to have Gerard, you're going to have some of the answers. Be on set and he'll come up with some really clever ideas. Kelly's got something, Ashley's got something. And these are all actors on set, and sometimes guys like Stefan, who's got a doing other feature films under his belt, come up with some technical cues or something. It's filming that first episode, and we did it in 2.5 days, was absolutely remarkable. I didn't want to leave the set, as exhausted as everybody was, but it was magical.
you said 2
Well,
days.
and
Sorry, you just said there was 2 days to film one episode. How many episodes are you looking to make this particular project?
On script, it's 11 episodes. So tentatively, it's like a season of 11, 10 or 12-minute episodes. That's in terms of tone, it's very Adult Swim friendly, so kind of late night comedy. And I think and Pete can probably talk a little bit more about this too. Is some of the platforms we're looking at is a lot more streaming online, or if we can get onto like some of those late night platforms like Adult Swim is. FX has their own platform too, and we're talking to a few other entities.
and the first episode is a perfect example of something that we wanted to, just for the fact of we wanted to produce something. It's a great idea. The script is solid. We can make it 11 episodes at approximately 10 minutes each, approximately, or we could compress episodes into a 21-minute, so it would be a 30-minute kind of a thing for depending on the media that we choose that we feel is the proper fit for the project. The thinking that we had is definitely behind funding. The first full-length feature that is a part of Misassembly, that was done, and we can talk about that at a later date in detail about how we did it with absolutely zero funding, with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, begging, and borrowing from friends. And that took multiple years to create. We wanted to get something out faster and to market, and really we're using the first episode to hopefully fund the next episodes. So with that aspect, we're dealing with volunteer labor. And when you have volunteer labor, you a lot of people that commit, and then other things come up, and so you have to be really fluid with this project, and you have to be able to accept the charity of people that want to give charity to you and actors. And that's why it ties back into building that community, because if it was so rigid of, no, this is what I want, you have to do this, and they don't have buy-in, you get people to feel that, okay, this is a job, and if this is a job, then I should be compensated for my time. Whereas right now, this is community theater, and we're all hoping for people that can give us their best space and their best time. And I think that we had, and you brought up Ellen, and he's a perfect example where we had a conflict from previous commitments. Ellen stepped in and took the role to a different level, even though the character is the same and the end result is the same. His vision of how he interpreted it was completely different, but it's beautiful and it's amazing, and it flowed with that. And so the three steps that we have, the picking the length, which gives the people time to fit into their schedules, being 2.5 days. So really it was a weekend for the actors, because it was really less than 2 days. The other shoot only had a limited amount of people that we came back the next weekend and did. Anyway, well, later. But people they were tired about it, and everybody hung around and ate pizza and talked, and even there was only a few people that were like, I gotta go by, and they ran off. Everybody else hung around for a couple hours afterwards.
Yeah, I think we were pretty successful in creating that sense of community, and along lines of like bringing in a volunteer crew and a group of cast members. Budgeting your time, using them to the best of your ability, and not really trying to go over that budgeted amount of time, because they got stuff to do too. And then feeding them. I think I dropped we probably dropped like $500-600 on food. And then, but and that was okay. And then from my own experience, I've worked on productions where the director and producers are just raging assholes and no money involved. It was their way or the highway, and they really did not care for any type of real group collaboration. And those projects, I think there was like one that might have gone on to do other stuff, and everything else just kind of dwindled away into obscurity. And it from my point of view, being in that position, it's like that was really unfortunate. You bleed for this person, and they don't follow through, and that's something I don't want to do with any of my projects. Is I want to try and put them out there at the best I can, and hope that they do take off, because that I owe it to so many people that are willing to donate their time and their talents, and make the most of it.
Let me step in real quick, because I know we've mentioned a couple of names here, like Alan. Alan Cutler is our lead actor for at least lead in the first part of the episode.
Yep.
The other thing that I think would be valid to kind of talk about with our listeners is, as Pete and you've mentioned, we're kind of running off of volunteers. We're all volunteering on this particular project, where we've got actors that have volunteered. So how would you guys describe this process of getting people to volunteer? Would it be fair to say that because, Dan, you're kind of well known in the community, people trust you, they know you have a vision, that they are more than willing to kind of get involved in these projects? Because if somebody's listening on the other side and say, like, well, I want to do a project, but do I put an ad out in Craigslist, or do I go to networking events? How would you both describe the process that you guys used in order to obtain volunteers for your project?
Usually I go through my network of friends. I really want to, when I start developing or designing a project, and I know my resources are going to be limited. The first bit of creating that creative community is going to my friends, people that I've collaborated before in the past, and I know can do certain talents, and then see if they're willing to jump in, and then if not, see if they have somebody else in their network. And then after that, I've been pretty good about doing like this through social media, doing casting calls. Previously, we had some friends that pretty much we auditioned their network of talent, and from that we got Ashley, who's our lead kid one, and then I think the rest were pretty much just like friends of ours that we're able to fit in there and be able to commit. But if I don't know, Pete, do you have anything else to add to that?
I do a little bit. I think that one of the important parts, and I don't want to keep using the buzzword, but the culture and the community that we build, that's already been established through the works of Dan, and very limited on my part as far as helping out with other organizations or other projects. It's one of those things where it's I helped you out on this project. Hey, do you want to help me on this project? Hey, I've helped you out with this before. Do you want to help me out with this? Hey, can you do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Hey, I have a friend that would be perfect for this part. Cool. Have them come read. It's one of those things where it really is a local network, but it's stemmed off of oh, I helped them with that project. Oh, they've helped me with this, and it's across genres. I helped you on this comic book. I helped you set up this Comic-Con. I helped you a part of X, Y, and Z. I met you at this gallery, and we were talking about certain things, and you just build that network, and so then you can say, hey, man, do you want to come run? Do you want to be an actor in this, or do you want to run back and forth and run your ass off, and I'll feed you some food, you know?
No, I think
you want to hold the ladder while I'm standing up?
You guys brought up some great points, and I think it's valid, for people that are listening to basically, if they want to try and do this, Pete brought up some great points, is to get out there, network, volunteer, help other people's projects, and then kind of go back around and say, hey, I've got something that I want to work on. Would you guys mind doing it? Mm-hmm. Creating and establishing that network is definitely a first part into getting to any project. I mean, you mentioned comic books, you mentioned Comic Cons. I think that's kind of how we all started. I mean, myself, I was volunteering, helping out with different organizations, and that in turn led to me getting to know other people, getting to meet, Dan and other things. So I think that's a really valid point, is you kind of got to put yourself out there, because people get a little leery when there's just open casting calls, right? You don't know what you're going to expect. Yeah. I know Dan has his casting couch stories as well. We might get to a later date, but
it usually involves a truck stop and a glory hole.
Right. So, I think people get sketchy about that. Now, you said that you put the casting call out on your social media networks. Was there any attempt to put things out like on a Craigslist or just an open cast?
No, I didn't. I ended up not having to. Social media seemed to be just fine. Yeah, we only did like two casting calls, I think, and it was mostly through some of our friends that it was people that I didn't know.
How was the turnout for those casting calls?
It was pretty good. Well, you attended one of them that Saturday. And I think we
be there though, right? But I mean, what was the response? I mean, for
Oh, sure. I think that first one we got something like 10 or 12, people that we auditioned, and from that we ended up with I think three people from that one, and then the second one. So the second one was we auditioned Alan, but it wasn't for the role that he ended up taking. When we had an actor cast as our lead, and things scheduling didn't work out. That's when I was like, man, who could jump into this at a drop of a hat and have no problem memorizing lines? It was like, oh yeah, Alan, because Alan and I. I've got a long history with Pete since we go all the way back to grade school. But with Alan, he was there at the beginning of when I was doing OFM, and we get dressed up in the big latex monster outfits and do the choreographed sword fighting. Yeah. So I knew he could do all the physical stuff, and he could, figure things out and learn stuff and learn lines, and then just after he's got that down, the rest of it's just, improvising and throwing in his own flavors at any given moment. It's always a joy to watch him in front of the camera and see how the other actors will interact with somebody that's so lively and spontaneous. And they worked really well.
And I think that the model that we use, this isn't new. Like you guys know this, and in the history of films, and even in the modern day, you can see groups of people that kind of travel through movies. It's not just that Adam Sandler thinks that David Spade's the best actor in the world, or that James Franco loves Seth Green. It's just those or Seth Rogen.
One of the Seths.
Finance numbers. No disrespect. Where you have these groups of people, and it's because the chemistry is already built there.
Yeah.
And so when you see stuff and you have the history with Alan, and he's amazing, and I was there for that, and I was there for the two readings that we had for two people, and then when we had people have conflicts and we had to go and recast, it was easy for you to call me and say, hey, we're going to have to recast this. I was thinking Alan, I was like, hell yes.
Yeah.
Because when we were in there, we're like, this guy, we either have to fit him in somewhere, or we have to write something for him to fit in somewhere.
For him, yeah.
And so it's one of those things where, and so as you're writing in your creative process, and you start thinking about, this guy's got to be in, and this guy's got to be in, and some of the people that I've met and I forgot their names or whatever. I'm like, I remember walking up to Danny, I'm like, oh man, is there a way that we can fit him in? And you're like, episode 5, dude. He's going to be in episode 5. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yay. So
yeah. When I sit down to write a script, I'm already thinking about casting. I want to write for that person to be a character. With Camp Crash, because we didn't know what our resources were for like props and sets. I kept it vague. So locations were vague, and character background. I really wanted to. I knew who I wanted. And I wanted them to create the character. I wanted them to tell me what the background is. Like, here's the things that they might say. Will they actually say this? And sometimes they change it up. They tell me they ask me to rewrite this, or we'll have creative discussions on dialogue and action. And for episode 2 through 4, we had a reading last week. And that was exactly the conversations that we had. It's like, I don't think this quite flows, or this doesn't quite work, or I don't think my character actually would say this. It's like, oh, okay. So we had those conversations, and I got to go back and rewrite some of the parts of those scripts, which is fine. I absolutely love doing it, and I'll be doing that right up until we film. And then when we're filming, the script's changing right in front of me too. I love it because it's just a blueprint. The script to me is just a suggestion. It's basically your point A's and point B's, and it's just, we got to fill in the gaps. And sometimes that happens organically right in front of the camera, while you're doing it.
Well, let's move on and talk about, we got the volunteers as far as the acting is going. How difficult was it to get volunteers to do the behind the scenes work, the photography, the videography, production, editing, best boy grips, all of that? I think, Pete and yourself have a really big hand in trying to, put together a motley crew of stagehands for this production, right?
It was an absolute pain in the ass. No, it was awesome. Everybody was great. I think that Danny did a great job of bringing people in and getting people. One of the things about it is that you have to get people fired up and excited about doing things like this. And so the motivation, and also I'm the very anal retentive, stay on the schedule. We got to move forward with this. But at the same time, you have to give your director, and I believe that you have to take everything, being in the back of the house, you have to have all the logistics taken care of so they can just create. The actors can just create. They're just in the zone. Anything that takes them out of that, you're going to lose time to get that back. We had a very good cinematographer. Ryan was awesome. He's amazing. And he was really great but he's very thorough. Okay, got the shot, let's go. Where there had to be a dialogue between Danny, the director, and Ryan to say, no, need to reshoot this. No, this isn't going to work. No, this is going to work. So those parts are going to come up. But we were actually really ahead of schedule and filming other shots. But getting the quality of people that were working on this, and this was my first time as a producer on anything like this, and having a role in that. Everybody was so professional and so on the ball, and just dedicated to making everything a success, from running power cords to generators to working a fog machine that just didn't work to putting someone in this contortionist box so they could push a little fog button.
Yeah.
That really didn't make a difference, but he was there. And at the end of the day, the fog was okay. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big part, not only having, putting together the crew, but is making sure that the material is fun and worth working on, and attracting people. Yeah, I'm pretty much known now for doing pretty gonzo weird stuff. Yeah, and then the people that we brought on for behind the scenes, especially, I mean, they're all friends of ours that we've worked with before, so they kind of knew what they were getting themselves into, and they knew that we weren't gonna screw them around, and it was gonna be business, but they're gonna have fun, and I like my sets to be fun. It's gonna be labor intensive, but it's not like I'm putting together a convention that takes like 18 months, and I'm losing weight and stressing out. I think this is the first production that no, this is actually like this, because Isolation Man also was it was a smooth production. We set up the logistics. The script was laid out. Well, we didn't really have a script, but the scenarios were laid out so that we didn't really have needed a lot of people and a lot of equipment, and too much logistics, where we could just show up, do the shoot, and really have fun. And so filming Isolation Man was really smooth, and Camp Crash, it's a bigger production. The production value pretty much, I would say, tripled compared to what we did with Isolation Man. But at the same time, I think we were able to keep it fun, keep it loose. Yeah, somehow we stayed to the shoot schedule. We got a few extra shots, but and that was just having the right people in those right roles, or and then when we're on set and it's like, okay, this isn't working, we were very quick to kind of shuffle and adjust things. Pete was really good at delegating. Gerard, you were really good at figuring out what we lacked, and making sure those roles were filled. And then everybody else, I've worked on other productions before, and I knew what they could do. That's also a good thing too, is knowing if you don't have a certain skill set, knowing who those people are, to get them in there, and knowing and having an idea of what kind of time commitment that is, so they can come in, fit that niche, and then leave when it's appropriate. So yeah, and at the same time, knowing when it's time to get to work, and when it's time to have have a little fun.
And the other thing is that I want to add on to that is the fact that everybody, either behind the camera or in front of the camera, nobody was, well, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Everybody did everything to make it a success. And when you have that mentality, when you have that culture that we're all here to succeed. And again, these people are donating their time. Yeah. So we have to make it fun. We have to make it enjoyable. And it's the idea of true leadership to say we're all on a common goal. And, it really paid off to the fact of the cohesiveness of the group, that nobody left after we were done. Very few people were that had to go because they had other engagements later that night, but nobody really left, and everybody wanted to talk about, this is awesome, this is fun. Everybody was jazzed for the next episodes. Everybody wanted to continue, and they were all stoked, and they're putting their costumes away with care, and people were helping I mean, Danny, you and I, there was maybe one day we had to move some stuff by ourselves, but aside from that, everybody else pitched in and helped us move everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it was neat too, because it also opened the floodgate of like, hey, I've got this project in mind, and I was like, well, look what we're doing. We're able to put this thing together. At the moment we've got no money. Yeah, feel free to start working on that. So like Elise, that jump started her project, and that Bennett fellow who helped us out. He's been talking to me about his script. It kicked Stefan. It helped get him jazzed, so he'd do his next short, which I helped, I think, one day on set with him. And I learned how to operate, actually be a grip, which I've never really had the opportunity to. Usually I'm building props or doing something on set, but so that was really good, because he's quite the professional when it comes to operating camera and directing too. He's done a few features himself. So I was really jazzed to see him reinvigorated, because he's such a huge talent, and he's somebody that really needs to be supported.
Oh, and another thing I want to talk about is the pre-production. God, the artists and the art that they gave, and the time to build to include into the set, and just the different genres that and places where we got these amazing artists that turned these relics from a junkyard or a recycle pit or what a salvage facility, whatever you want to talk about, it came from, into these beautiful works of apocalyptic art that really brings the look and the feel of the picture and the series together. So
we had J. James McFarlane, who I worked with on Show Devils #4 as our storyboard artist. That guy's a machine. He does not sleep. So I did some thumbnails of the shots that I wanted, and I gave him like 2 months maybe. And he fucking had everything done in 2 weeks. When you're talking to him, it's he kind of bleeds in and out of what reality is, but it's only because he's just constantly working on stuff. And then we had Coco and Thomas Scharfenberg, butchering his last name, but doing our set dressings and production design. And then, Sam Marcus and with his assault vehicles. Oh man, that really made that last sequence. Because I think without those pieces, it just wouldn't have the same feeling.
Yeah, they definitely brought in, a higher caliber of presence there with the assault vehicles, the monster van. And so, again, we talked about how you guys obtain volunteers, people at production, artists. Again, it's more of the fact that you guys have the relationships that have already been built. You've already have established yourself by putting yourself out there and volunteering for other people's projects. So if anybody's interested in trying to do, their own work, now obviously the best way to do about it is try to put yourself out there and help someone else on their project, see what works for them, see what doesn't. Because again, for us, we're not really investing a lot of money in paying, professionals, quote unquote, people that we don't know.
Yeah.
We are basically working with people that we have a relationship with, that are talented, we know that have produced work. And as Dan has mentioned, he's produced pieces before. And so that's why I think a lot of people tend to kind of work with Dan, because he knows he'll get something done. It's not just talk. It's not just, like, hey, we're going to do this, and 5 months later you don't hear anything. There's things that are being produced constantly. But the other aspect, too, that we want to kind of hit on for our listeners is also to talk about something that you guys have been brushing on here and there, and that I've mentioned is the monetary part of it, the
Yeah.
money. I know, Dan, you've already mentioned the money that you guys have spent on feeding the talent, just people that are being there. Pete, what do you think are some of the other pitfalls that people that are trying to do their own film should look out for, and how it related to Camp Crash?
I think the fact is, like, you have to, there's certain things that you're going to have to pay for. It was really unique that even when we talked about Isolation Man and how it didn't cost money, it did. There's aspects of it especially on a finance side of it, everything costs money. Your time is money. But the things that we have to always look at is that there's always supplies you're going to have to get. There's always makeup. There's always gaff tape. There's little things that you're going to have to run and go grab. For this particular budget, there were two big costs to the filming, the actual filming, and editing, and then also the food and beverages. It was a hot shoot. It was a hot day, and so keep everybody hydrated, and then in the morning keep everybody caffeinated, because we had a very early call time. Those are just aspects that you're going to have, and then little snacks and just little stuff that it costs and it adds up to. And a little back thing that I need to kind of just make sure that we emphasize. Everybody on that set to me were professionals. It's just that we're begging our friends to forego economic tinder to have fun with, for future gain. Our goal is to eventually pay these people. Our goal is to eventually, but they see the long-term benefit of working with us, I hope, in the fact that we will, anytime they do have a project that we can help out with, we're going to. We're passionate about the projects. We want to help everybody succeed, and all tides rides all boats. So we want to make sure that we're providing an environment that they want to come back and work for us. But yeah, there's definitely financial costs to it, not having a generator, and thank God Sam did. And he's like, "Oh, I got a generator. We can run this," because if not, we tried to run 250 feet of extension cords, and we only came up 500 feet short. Yeah. So we tried to run it off the back of my truck because I have a 110 outlet in the back of my truck. So my truck was running for 45 minutes before we're like, "Hey, there's a generator." And then, just those little things where you're trying to piecemeal and duct tape something together, and as long as it's off camera, you can make it work.
Yeah, despite as much planning as we put into it, there's just some things that we failed to see, or I failed to see.
No, I think that's a good point. No matter how much planning goes into ahead of things, there's always going to be something that goes wrong. And you just kind of have to roll with those punches. I mean, it could have rained that day. We could have a snowstorm. Luckily the weather was perfect.
Yeah, it was very cooperative.
Shot it. But let me ask you this, Dan, from conception, or at least from pen to paper to shooting to actually producing the first episode.
Yeah.
How long would you have said that's taken you, or what project?
Yeah, so the script was written in between 2016 and came to the realization of that it needed to be broken down episodically, probably in spring of 2017. So and then we showed it in December 22nd, I think. We unveiled it, the first showing. So it's just for that first episode, you're looking at about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And the rest of the scripts are done. Now we just got to go and into pre-production mode, and
I would say that even though we have the first episode shot and we have shown it, it was a very private showing, and we haven't filmed. Did you guys film today?
No, we did not.
Okay. So I can say that. You can edit that out. We haven't filmed the marketing material for it to put it on Kickstarter. So that is our goal, as well as put it on misassemblyllc.com. Short aimless plug, where we can start funding, because we have budgets set out, we have a vision and a timeline of what the first the next 4 episodes can do. I think that we're going to try to maybe film 2 episodes if we can, in time permitting, at a time this time, because I think that we might, but we don't want to push. Now that they've seen what they can do, and now we see what we can do, hopefully we can get a little more aggressive on the timetable. But it really depends on the financing that we raise, because we recognize that we're taking people's time, and there's going to be a point where we're going to have to start compensating people, and we want that to come sooner than later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the part we want to do. We want to make sure that these people are compensated.
So basically what you guys have done is you shot a proof of concept, have the first episode out. As mentioned, there was a private showing at Mutiny Information Cafe. And then now comes the next couple of steps where we're looking at doing episode 2, 3, and 4. And is the plan now to kind of incorporate a Kickstarter program, or looking at funding through other sponsorships? What's the plan moving forward in order to gain that capital?
Oh, go ahead.
Everything and anything. Really, we're looking at a multiple prong. I mean, it's the thing about maxing out our credit cards, because that's too late. It's the idea of showing it and looking at Kickstarter and figuring it out. And we have an aggressive timetable. So if where we're at, we're funding between then and then, if we have to push it out, or if we have to figure out a way that we're going to film it anyway. And to be totally transparent with our crew, so they can see where we're at, and be in communication. But yeah, it's going to be looking at, showing it to people, showing it to, if we get picked up, if someone likes it and they want to, and they have the funding for that, then definitely. But really, we're going to push the Kickstarter campaign first. And other avenues where we're talking to. I know Dan has been showing it to some people and some other avenues. So, I hope that when our listeners are listening to this for the first time, we're completely funded. So if not, you can. My email is somewhere you can reach to.
No, totally. So Dan, you talked about the premiere of Camp Crash episode 1. Yeah. Talk us through how that went. What was the reception like for the screen?
Technical issues aside, it went swimmingly. No, it went really good. Like I said, we had some technical spouts. People seem to enjoy it, really react to it. The opening scene, it's a big groan, and I got those right off the bat, and then everything else after that was just big laughs. So yeah, the crowd response was pretty well. I mean, most of the audience was people that worked with it, and then friends of them. I think Ashley brought her mother and had to kind of explain things as they went. And I don't think her mom could look me in the eye after that.
Oh no.
But that's fine. That once you see it, you'll know why. You can't unsee it. But I've been passing around to friends, people that I know in the industry, and they've been responding pretty well for the most part. And then we are going to be screening it. Hopefully this will be out by then. January 30th. No, it probably won't be out by then. But at Open Screen Night with which is the local Denver platform at the Bug Theater, and that seems to be well, I'm just pretty jazzed about that. So initially when and I know a few of those people over there. Initially when I reached out to them, they're like, oh well, there's a couple months waiting list to get put on, and then all of a sudden, like a week or two ago, I got a notice, hey, we'll see you on the 30th, of January. It's like, oh, that's nice. So people are seeing it and they're enjoying it for whatever reason. But I can't wait to really share it with the public. But it does have to go out there with the crowdfunding material. It's our proof. The first episode is our proof of concept, and it's our hook. And then along with that, if you read the episode or the second episode, suddenly has to double just because of the scale and scope. We'll have exploding bodies and all kinds of other weird stuff. But yeah, it's and then to go back to like the crowdfunding too, like some of the incentives. We really want investors, and the layperson to consider themselves an investor, even if they're chipping in $5 here or $20 there. We want them in on part of that process as we're making that, to lay witness, or to also create an extended community where we have more talent and more skilled people to kind of pull from. Some of them might also have a project worth investigating. Early on, I can't remember if we talked about this in one of the previous podcasts, but one of the ideas behind Misassembly was to model it as the Bohemian Legion M, where they were doing some of these smaller projects, but they're studio execs, so they were still able to do $1 million projects. We don't need that. I mean, it'd be nice, but we can do a project for a couple $100,000 versus a couple $1 million. So and to really do that is to really engage with the people and bring them on set, if need be. Maybe in I think one of the incentives in our Kickstarter would be to at a certain price point, they come and have an on-camera death or something, or they're an extra or something to that extent. But really engage with them and make them part of that creative process.
So I know we talked a little bit about the concept of Camp Crash, but if you were
I just thought we were giving them tote pads. I thought it was the NPR thing. I didn't think they were coming on stage. I thought we are just giving, or on set. I thought we are just going to give them a tote bag. So that's new to me. But yeah, let's go with that. Sorry, what were you saying?
That's at a much higher price point to bring them on stage.
Give them a crossing pin for whatever, but no.
Not everybody can be a Chio marching band.
Right. Oh, probably cut that out. No.
That's okay.
We got 10 good minutes.
I think Dave's still in that.
At the beginning, we talked about the concept of what Camp Crash, but could you give the listeners just a summary of what the plot of the show is?
Essentially, the plot is these kids, they're in their 30s and 40s, and after the last economic downturn, you had a number of kids going back to live in mom and dad's basement, and they just never left. And these aging parents are left with pondering, what the fuck do we do with our kids? Well, they ship them off to summer camp, and so these kids are waiting for the bus, and they eventually get hijacked by this warrior of the wasteland named Hagar, and he brings them to his summer camp, which is Camp Crash, where there they learn the art of warfare. And they battle every day to be camp director, and that's really is the whole story. They
That's a great sell right there. I mean, if you're not interested in seeing something like that, I'm not sure what's wrong with you. But I think what would be great is that, you know, if as we shoot, you know, if you're interested in seeing episode 1, maybe that would be a part of the Kickstarter here, right? Maybe donate X amount and you can see episode 1 for free before it airs for anyone else. I don't know.
Well, that too. We can also, you know, if you're a local business and want to sponsor a creative initiative, we can always have Hagar do a promotional ad for them.
Right, that'd be fantastic. Yes, Hagar, played by Alan Cutler, is fantastic.
Can you imagine him doing a Go Fast commercial?
Right. I think it definitely practically writes itself. So
yeah.
Let me recap one more time. We talked about basically networking is a very important key in trying to do something like this. You know, getting involved in your local community with artists and filmmakers and seeing what kind of projects are going on. I know, Pete, you know, as we talked a little bit about yesterday, you were involved with a lot of meetups and things like that. Would you recommend people doing that as far as networking?
Absolutely. I mean, and the thing about it is I come from a lobbying, political science, finance, economics background. You know, I love going to the movies, and I danced in college, but I've never been a part of these aspects until, you know, but I've known that Danny has been a good friend of mine. And so I was just like, okay, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. You know, I'm open, and I think that that's one of my strengths is that I'm always open to help out. I'm always open to volunteer. One time when I was talking to Dan, I was sitting at home, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm setting up this horror house pinball thing down by, I was like, oh, that's over on my apartment. Can I come down and help these awesome blood sets and everything? And it was fun. And that's where it kind of just started again, where so diving in and jumping in and using your resources. And, you know, I've become by default, because it's my strength, is the finance guy, but I'm also I can do the program management. I can see the big schedule. I can keep us on task. I can that prods the artists to get their shit done. So it's one of those things where it's knowing your strengths and being able to just jump in. At the same time, if I have to just run water to people, or if I'm cleaning up, or if I'm, you know, there isn't a job. And if you have that openness to just serve, it's going to help you out, and you're going to build a community, and you're going to be asked to jump on. And I've helped out with some really cool stuff. I've helped out with some stuff that I'm like, yeah, I did that one time, I'm not going to do it again. So there's other things that I'm just like, but I can help out people with things. And I think that's that willingness, especially when you're trying to start something. You should have that kind of as your mantra, just to be able to volunteer. But anything and everything. I'm now based in Indianapolis, and there's an Indianapolis directors meetup that I'm going to go to, and hopefully I'm going to get involved in some projects there. So then I'm building our network, even, you know, at different areas.
Yes, I mean, yeah, you definitely don't have to be in the same area to still get projects done. And I think, Pete, you brought up a great point as far as having the willingness to serve and work many different roles, learning, you know, every aspect of the industry or networking as much as possible. Dan, as we wrap this up, what other aspects do you think is important when trying to do something like that you know, Pete and I have not covered?
I think you know, in terms of other people creating their own projects too. You know, design a project that you know you can do with, you know, with the resources that you have. You know, that's what I started out with, you know, Camp Crash. That's what I did with Isolation Man. You know, design that, and then identify the, you know, the things that you can do, and then identify the stuff that you know you can't do, whether you don't have those resources, or you don't have that skill set. Then you know who you have to go out and network with. If you don't have that person or those resources in, you know, within your immediate group. identify where your strengths and weaknesses are. I mean, and sometimes you have to put together a flow chart, or just a lot of Post-it notes. But that's how that stuff starts. Just start taking your idea, putting it down in a script, and then dissecting it. From point A to point B, just identifying all the little key marks of what you need to do. And sometimes it's stuff that it's like, okay, I clearly don't have the resources to do it now. Well, sometimes that opens itself up to either redefining that project or a completely different project. There's been just numerous projects that kind of open themselves up to me and some of my other friends, just based on that. It's like, I can't do this, but I certainly can do that. And then later on, you can always revisit and maybe the project's changed, or you're a different person, and it's not necessarily worth tackling at that moment. But yeah, just identify what your strengths and weaknesses are and what your resources are, and then tackle it from there.
Excellent. Setting up realistic expectations, realistic goals, and being adaptable. I think that's a lot of things that we've seen in working with you and doing a lot of projects. Obviously you kind of have to be very proactive, but also reactionary as well. Well, guys, that's our time for this particular episode of Misassembled. It was great talking to you all. For Dan Crozier, Pete Roskop, I'm Gerard Kaihui. We'll see you guys next time. Anything else to say before we leave?
Thanks, guys. Hope you guys are staying warm in this, frosty winterland. Stay away from the Yetis.
Yeah.
I hope you all go out and get some good deals at your local furniture and appliance store during President's Day.
Nice.
We'll definitely. Have a good night.